The world of reality television has often been a space where friendships and rivalries coexist. But behind the scenes, the story of Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz, the stars of American Pickers, would reveal a chilling narrative that transcends the superficial charm and allure of their on-screen camaraderie. The world was stunned when Frank Fritz, once a beloved figure known for his infectious enthusiasm and vast knowledge of antiques, was found dead in 2021 under suspicious circumstances. What was initially reported as a tragic stroke would soon unravel into a complex, spine-chilling mystery involving betrayal, murder, and the pursuit of power. The heart of the show, Wolfe and Fritz's relationship. Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz had been inseparable for years. Their bond appeared to be forged in the fires of shared passion for history, antiques, and the thrill of the hunt. Together, they traveled the country, digging through barns, attics, and forgotten estates in search of hidden treasures. The show they created, American Pickers, had become a national sensation, with viewers tuning in each week to watch their quirky personalities and dynamic friendship unfold on screen. Wolfe, the meticulous and organized picker, and Fritz, the exuberant and often unpredictable sidekick, became the poster children for a subculture of collectors and history buffs. However, beneath the surface of this picture-perfect duo, tensions were simmering. As with many long-term partnerships, the years of working closely together began to take their toll. The relationship between Wolfe and Fritz began to fray, driven in part by jealousy, personal demons, and the strain of maintaining a facade for the cameras. While their on-screen chemistry was undeniable, off-screen, there were whispered rumors of growing resentments. Wolfe's increasing dominance in the business side of American Pickers was not without its friction, especially as Fritz, who had always been the more carefree of the two, found himself facing health problems that hindered his ability to keep up with the demanding pace of their lifestyle. The sudden death, a tragic stroke, or something darker? When Frank Fritz was rushed to the hospital in July of 2021, the initial cause of his sudden deterioration was reported as a stroke. Friends, family, and fans were left in shock as they processed the sudden decline of a man who had seemed so full of life and energy. Wolfe, his longtime friend and partner, appeared devastated by the news. He publicly mourned the loss of his friend and shared emotional tributes to their time together. Fans rallied around him, offering condolences as they too struggled to comprehend the loss. But there were cracks in the narrative from the very beginning. While Wolfe's public persona seemed sincere, his behavior in the days leading up to and after Fritz's hospitalization was marked by an unsettling calmness. The FBI would later uncover that this was not the demeanor of a grieving man, but one of someone carefully plotting his next moves. Wolfe quickly began making decisions about the future of American Pickers, a move that struck many as eerily calculated. Was he truly mourning his friend, or was he already planning for a future without him? The turning point, a toxicology report that changed everything. The investigation into Fritz's death took a dramatic turn when the results of his toxicology report were made public. What had initially been believed to be a stroke was, in fact, something far more sinister. Fritz's bloodstream was found to contain high levels of toxins, substances far beyond anything that could have been associated with his known medical conditions. It wasn't a stroke that had claimed his life, but a deliberate poisoning. The realization that Fritz had been murdered sent shock waves through the entertainment world. The investigation quickly shifted focus from a medical tragedy to a full-blown criminal inquiry. As the FBI delved deeper into Fritz's final days, they discovered that Wolfe had been far more involved in his friend's life and death than anyone had previously realized. Witnesses came forward, placing Wolfe at Fritz's home just hours before his collapse. The FBI also discovered evidence of tampered drug bottles in Fritz's personal medicine cabinet, with Wolfe's fingerprints on several of them. These bottles contained the same lethal substances found in Fritz's body. With this new evidence in hand, the FBI began to piece together a troubling timeline of events. The motive: control, power, and greed. As the investigation continued, the focus turned to Mike Wolfe's potential motive. For years, Wolfe had been the face of American Pickers, but as the show grew in popularity, so did his financial and professional ambitions. Wolfe had been quietly taking control of the show's business side, securing lucrative sponsorships, merchandise deals, and even discussing potential spin-offs. While Fritz's health was in decline, Wolfe was forging ahead with plans to expand the empire that American Pickers had become. The question that now haunted investigators was whether Wolfe had seen his partner's declining health not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity to assume full control of the show and the wealth it generated. Wolfe's financial troubles in the months leading up to Fritz's death were a key factor in the investigation. Despite his success on American Pickers, Wolfe had been struggling with mounting debt and failed investments. The pressure was beginning to take a toll on him, and some close to him reported that he had become increasingly irritable and consumed by stress. Wolfe had been living beyond his means, and the success of American Pickers was the one thing keeping him afloat. Could the financial pressure have pushed him to take extreme measures? The evidence suggested that he had not only seen Fritz's death as inevitable, but perhaps even planned for it. The digital trail, texts, emails, and messages that revealed the plan. As the FBI sifted through the digital records of Mike Wolfe's communications, a disturbing pattern emerged. Texts, emails, and phone calls revealed a man preparing for life without his partner. Wolfe had been in frequent contact with business associates in the days before Fritz's hospitalization, discussing plans for the future of the show and suggesting that they needed to think about the show's future without Frank. This was not the language of a man mourning his friend. It was the language of a man who had already moved on, making plans for a future where he would be the sole leader of American Pickers. The most chilling message came just hours before Fritz's collapse. Wolfe sent a text that would later send shivers down the spines of investigators. "We need to be ready for what happens next. Frank's health is a liability, and we need to think about the show's future." This was no ordinary business foresight. It was a premeditated plan to secure control over the empire they had built together. Even more disturbing were the messages exchanged directly between Wolfe and Fritz. In their final conversations, Fritz's tone had shifted from one of camaraderie to one of confusion and fear. In one heartbreaking text, Fritz wrote, "I don't know what you want from me, Mike, but I can't keep up anymore. If you're trying to push me out, just say it." Fritz had sensed the shift in their relationship. He knew something was wrong, but he could not have imagined how far Wolfe was willing to go. The role of Rick Harrison, the Pawn-Stars connection. As the investigation into Frank Fritz's death deepened, another name began to surface. Rick Harrison, the beloved star of Pawn Stars, and a man who had once been a close associate of both Wolfe and Fritz. Harrison had appeared on American Pickers several times as a guest star, but his involvement in the case seemed, at first, peripheral. However, the FBI's investigation uncovered a deeper connection between Harrison and Wolfe, one that suggested that Harrison might not have been as innocent as he appeared. The evidence pointed to a series of personal communications between Wolfe and Harrison that were far more revealing than anyone had anticipated. Text messages and phone calls showed Harrison offering his support to Wolfe, encouraging him to stay focused on securing control of the show. One message in particular stood out. "You've got this, Mike. Just make sure things go the way you want them to. You've worked too hard to let anyone stand in your way." What had initially seemed like casual advice now seemed deeply ominous in hindsight. Was Harrison a bystander, offering nothing more than supportive words to a grieving friend? Or was he complicit in a far larger conspiracy? The courtroom drama, a trial of betrayal and murder. As the case against Mike Wolfe built, the courtroom drama became a spectacle that gripped the nation. With mounting evidence, poisoned drug bottles, digital communications, fingerprints, and the damning toxicology report, the prosecution presented a chilling picture of premeditated murder. Wolfe's defense team fought valiantly, attempting to downplay the significance of the evidence and arguing that Fritz's death was merely a tragic accident. But the evidence was overwhelming. Wolfe's composed demeanor in the face of Fritz's death was now seen as calculated, not grieving. His public displays of sorrow were stripped away, revealing a man who had acted out of desperation and greed. The once beloved star of American Pickers now stood accused of orchestrating the murder of his closest friend in a bid to secure control of the empire they had built together. Rick Harrison's role in the unfolding drama remained a point of contention. As the trial progressed, it became clear that Harrison was no mere spectator to the events surrounding Fritz's death. His involvement, whether through overt support or a more active role, painted a picture of two men, Wolfe and Harrison, who had used their friendship with Fritz as a stepping stone to further their own ambitions. The aftermath, a new era for reality television. The case of Frank Fritz's death rocked the entertainment world, leaving viewers and fans of American Pickers questioning the true nature of the relationships that had once seemed so genuine. The dark underbelly of reality television was laid bare, and what had once been an innocent show about antique hunting and friendship was now forever tarnished by betrayal and murder. Mike Wolfe's future in the industry remains uncertain, and the legacy of American Pickers may never recover from the scandal that shattered its foundation. As new details continue to emerge, the story of Frank Fritz's death serves as a chilling reminder that behind the glamour and fame of reality, television lies a world filled with secrets, rivalries, and a dangerous thirst for power. The unraveling of friendship, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz's complex relationship. For years, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz were the epitome of the dynamic duo that captured the hearts of millions on American Pickers. The show followed their travels across the United States, uncovering rare antiques from barns, basements, and forgotten attics. Their friendship was integral to the show's success, providing viewers with an authentic sense of camaraderie and shared passion. Wolfe, the meticulous and methodical picker, complemented Fritz, the enthusiastic and knowledgeable antique expert. Together, they seemed unstoppable. However, the reality behind the scenes was far more complicated. What many fans didn't see were the undercurrents of jealousy and competition that brewed between the two men. As the show grew in popularity, so did their differences. Wolfe's rise to stardom began to overshadow Fritz's contributions. While Fritz was loved by fans for his humor and expertise, Wolfe's role in steering the show became increasingly dominant. Behind the smiles and friendly banter, there were moments of tension, subtle at first, but over time, undeniable. Fritz's struggles with health also contributed to the strain in their relationship. His battle with obesity and back problems made it difficult for him to keep up with the physically demanding nature of the show. This left Wolfe to take on more of the spotlight, and perhaps, subconsciously, contributed to the mounting resentment. As Fritz's health deteriorated, the cracks in their relationship became more pronounced. The truth was, while they may have been partners on screen, their bond off-screen was far from as solid. This tension would come to a head when Fritz's sudden death turned their complex dynamic into a twisted tale of betrayal. The toxicology report, the sudden shift from stroke to murder. Initially, Frank Fritz's death was believed to be the result of a stroke, a tragic but not uncommon health event. He had been battling various medical issues for years, including back problems and obesity, which had taken a toll on his body. In the months leading up to his death, Fritz's health had been visibly deteriorating, and so, when news broke of his passing in 2021, it seemed plausible that a stroke could have been the cause. However, the investigation into his death soon took an unexpected turn. A toxicology report revealed a shocking and unsettling truth. Fritz had high levels of toxins in his bloodstream, substances that were not related to his known medical conditions. These were chemicals associated with poisonings, substances that could cause severe organ damage and, in extreme cases, death. This revelation sparked immediate suspicion and cast doubt on the stroke diagnosis. The FBI was called in to investigate further, and what they uncovered would send shockwaves through the reality television world. The toxicology findings indicated that Fritz had been poisoned, not just accidentally, but deliberately. The types of poisons found in his system were not easily obtained, and the levels were high enough to cause rapid deterioration. This was not a medical incident. It was a carefully executed murder. Suddenly, what seemed like a tragic health problem turned into a full-blown criminal investigation. For the investigators, this was the crucial turning point. The question was no longer, what caused Frank Fritz's death? But rather, who was responsible for ending his life so abruptly, and why? With this discovery, Mike Wolfe, who had been seen as the grieving friend, was thrust into the spotlight as the prime suspect. Mike Wolfe's behavior: a grieving friend or calculating opportunist? In the immediate aftermath of Frank Fritz's death, Mike Wolfe was portrayed as a heartbroken partner who had lost his longtime friend. His tributes to Fritz were heartfelt, filled with nostalgic memories of their years together on the road, hunting for antiques and sharing a passion for history. Wolfe spoke publicly about his loss, and many fans rallied around him, offering condolences and support. However, as the investigation into Fritz's death continued, Wolfe's behavior began to raise red flags. While others mourned Fritz's passing, Wolfe seemed strangely preoccupied with business matters. He wasted no time in making decisions about the future of American Pickers, securing new deals, and meeting with producers. The urgency with which he moved to ensure the show's continued success made it seem as though he was more concerned with preserving the brand than grieving the loss of his friend. Witnesses who were close to Wolfe described him as being distant and oddly unemotional, showing more focus on securing financial stability than on the well-being of his ailing partner. The cold, calculating nature of his actions seemed at odds with the image of the devastated friend who had just lost someone he considered a brother. His behavior became increasingly erratic. He was consumed with business strategy, not grief. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that Wolfe's role in Fritz's life and death was far more complex and sinister than anyone had anticipated. Was he truly mourning his friend, or was he orchestrating his own future at the expense of Fritz's life? The financial motive. The empire at stake, one of the key drivers behind Mike Wolfe's potential involvement in Frank Fritz's death, was the immense financial motive that had emerged in the years leading up to Fritz's passing. American Pickers had become a massive success, not just as a television show, but as a brand that generated millions in revenue. The duo's rise to fame had transformed them from antique hunters to media moguls, with endorsement deals, merchandise sales, and spin-offs. However, behind the glitz and glamour, the reality was less rosy. Mike Wolfe, once seen as the more grounded and professional of the two, had been struggling financially. Despite the success of American Pickers, Wolfe had made several risky business ventures that had not paid off. He was facing mounting debts and failing investments. His financial world was crumbling, and the pressure to maintain his public image was becoming unbearable. Frank Fritz's declining health presented an opportunity for Wolfe, one he might have seized on without hesitation. With Fritz out of the picture, Wolfe would stand to gain complete control over the American Pickers brand and its lucrative empire. The show would continue to thrive without Fritz, and Wolfe would be free to steer the ship in whatever direction he chose. This financial motive was further amplified when it was revealed that Wolfe had made numerous business decisions in the months leading up to Fritz's death. He had secured new sponsorships, negotiated merchandising deals, and had even begun planning for the future of the show without Fritz. In essence, Fritz's absence would secure Wolfe's future, both professionally and financially. The evidence mounts: forensics, digital footprints, and Wolfe's involvement. As the FBI delved deeper into the investigation, the evidence against Mike Wolfe began to pile up. The toxicology report had already confirmed that Frank Fritz had been poisoned, but the physical evidence, fingerprints, tampered drug bottles, and forensic evidence would be the keys to unraveling the mystery. One of the most damning pieces of evidence came from Fritz's medicine cabinet. Forensic investigators found drug bottles that had been tampered with, containing the same toxins found in Fritz's bloodstream. Even more incriminating, Mike Wolfe's fingerprints were discovered on the bottles. These were not just ordinary medicine bottles, they had been carefully altered to administer lethal doses of poison. Wolfe's proximity to these bottles, combined with his presence in Fritz's home in the days leading up to his collapse, painted a chilling picture of intent and opportunity. The FBI also uncovered a trail of digital communications that linked Wolfe directly to the poisoning. Text messages, emails, and phone calls revealed a pattern of manipulation and forethought. Wolfe had communicated with business associates about plans for the show's future without Fritz, discussing the need to prepare for what happens next, and even suggesting that Fritz's health had become a liability. These messages suggested that Wolfe was already planning for the end of his partnership with Fritz long before the fatal event took place. This digital footprint was a crucial piece of the puzzle. It demonstrated that Wolfe's behavior was not just that of a grieving friend, but of someone who was actively working behind the scenes to secure his position, financially and professionally. The involvement of Rick Harrison, from TV star to co-conspirator. As the investigation into Frank Fritz's death intensified, another name began to surface: Rick Harrison, the beloved star of Pawn Stars. Initially, Harrison's connection to the case seemed peripheral, perhaps just a casual acquaintance or business associate of Mike Wolfe. However, as investigators dug deeper into the communications between Harrison and Wolfe, a far more troubling picture began to emerge. What was once thought to be an innocent friendship between two TV personalities quickly revealed itself to be much more complex. The FBI discovered a series of personal and professional messages exchanged between Harrison and Wolfe, some of which hinted at darker intentions. In one particularly chilling message, Harrison seemed to encourage Wolfe, saying, "You've got this, Mike. Just make sure things go the way you want them to. You've worked too hard to let anyone stand in your way." These messages, once dismissed as friendly encouragement, now appeared to be something far more sinister. Was Harrison simply a bystander, or was he an active participant in a larger conspiracy? The FBI's investigation revealed that Harrison had been involved in several strategic discussions with Wolfe regarding the future of American Pickers, and his influence in these conversations suggested he might have been more than just a passive observer. The true extent of Rick Harrison's involvement remains unclear, but the growing evidence points to the possibility that he may have been more than just a supporting character in the unfolding drama. His words, his actions, and his connection to Wolfe could potentially link him to the conspiracy that led to Frank Fritz's untimely death.